What makes a good short story?
Let's just say that writing has a certain energy to it, okay? And certain prose, for whatever reason, has a certain rhythm, or it's got like a jazz thing, it's got a vibe. And that's the first element that I think is very important. And the second is that these characters and situations that you've introduced are colliding with each other in such a way that when you reach the conclusion of the story, um, it's not that it has to come together, but it has to reach some kind of understanding or some kind of breakthrough or some kind of segue or some kind of opening in terms of insight. Something has to shift in some way. There has to be movement, energetic movement. So they talk about character arc, they talk about dramatic structure and all that, but it's something. A lot of it comes down to character. If the character is interesting to me and the character in some way is changed or is elevated or faces his own existential dilemma or something happens and those story elements collide in an interesting way, that's what makes a great story, and that's what makes me want to go back to it and reread it, or leaves me in some place where I can look back at my life in a different way. So they're little reflections or little. I mean, some of the stories here, not that I'm saying mine are so great, but they're, it's hard to analyze. But also they have a morality aspect to them that I was trying to do, almost like a morality. Even though they're into this debauchery stuff, they're kind of a little bit. I'm not trying to make it didactic like life lessons, but they're like, oh, here's what could happen if you go down this channel. Which can happen, I don't know. I've been down some bad channels myself, so that's what I'd say. I hope that was helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose on that topic, which short story writers have you particularly enjoyed the work of? Is there anyone in particular?
Yeah, there's so many, but this writer Dennis Johnson. He has this great book called Jesus' Son. And actually, those are kind of outcasts. They're down on your luck. Well, he's passed on now, but that kind of people with drug people, just different kind of characters. Yeah, obviously, I was influenced by Bukowski a lot. He's one of my favorite writers, and trying to think in terms of Flannery O'Connor. There's just so many. I mean, Hemingway. I mean, I'm going through great writers now. There's obviously more current writers, but even Chekhov, has some great stories and yeah. So my friend said Dostoevsky. Like my friend said, my new thing about the Jehovah's Witness had some elements of like Notes from the Underground. If you ever read that, but that one. I'd say was another one that was influenced of all. I mean, I've read a bunch of Dostoevsky, but that Notes from the Underground, I'd say probably unconsciously, not intentional, but I love that. It's almost like a novella, or I call it like a story or a long story. So much, I probably reread that many times. It may have had an unconscious, but it wasn't like influence, because I like these characters. Who are a little down and out. I mean, I find that interesting. But there's characters that are like Raymond Carver and like John Cheever, people like that. They don't really do that, and I still love their stories. Like some Raymond Carver stories. What was that one? Why Don't You Dance or whatever? I forgot the name of it. It's such a great story. You know that one or no?
I don't think I do. No.
If you get a chance to check it out, it's like It starts out with he's this guy. He's got all these stuff from inside the house on the front lawn, and he's drinking there because his wife left him. So he's selling the stuff from his house, and he's just like sitting there like depressed. And this younger girl comes. I don't know if they say she's underage, but she's younger. And with the boy, and they're just like, look at all this crap, and the way they're talking about his stuff, and he's like all depressed. It's funny, and then it's like this point where he starts dancing with her and stuff, the girl, and it's a weird story, but it gets at the separation between the optimism of these young kids, and they're just, hey, look at all this crap. What are you doing for 10? And his like depression about his wife leaving him, and the way he says it with it just gets you an emotion, and it paints a picture really well in very few, minimalist, that's what they call it, right? Minimalist writing. I wouldn't say I'm exactly a minimalist, but I do respect that. I really do like writing where, if you could say it I sometimes have a little bit of a poetic aspect because that's my background. I wrote all the poetry books, but I do enjoy that. But I also enjoy kind of not. Sometimes the language gets too flowery for me. Put it that way. Some language is too florid, too over and it's not really saying much. So I do like sometimes when the prose is a little more direct, or yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think also I feel like as I get older, I feel like I've got less time for like purple prose, like is a phrase,
Right.
right? Like it's
Yes.
Just say what you mean. Say what you mean.
Right. Exactly. There's something to being more. That's the old like Hemingway versus Faulkner. I'd be more in the Hemingway. And the people like or Fitzgerald. People like what they like, but yeah, I personally. Yeah, there's something that it sometimes makes. I just find it more interesting. I don't know. I find it a lot of times, and sometimes it cuts through a lot of the noise. Sometimes, and I remember Bukowski was saying that he hated how writers would go on and on about setting up the scene and the sun and the beat, whatever, and then the describing the house and the front lawn, and you're like 2 pages in before anything's happened. So I understand you have to set some things up, but
I mean, even so with these things, you still have to focus and pay attention. Like Bukowski and Hemingway, they've trimmed all the words, but they're not telling you what's happening is still in between. People are having conversations where the reader can tell that what they're saying is not what they mean. But so it's not like even with less words, there's less complexity. I think that's, I think again when I was younger, that was a misapprehension I would have had, right? If you can say it in 100 words, you must be cleverer. There must be more to it, but there isn't. There's still that emotional depth, that complexity, that humanity in sort of in a few sentences. When it's done
right. Yeah, I'm with you 100%. I think we're actually in the minority in the literary community. I think others tend to go towards like the Proust and that, which is interesting. I'm not going to say I don't like some of that writing. I do, but it just wasn't for my style. Again, it's like there could be someone with purple prose that I would still find really interesting, and occasionally I do. But like I agree in general, I'm more of that Spartan kind of. I guess like you said, but you said, oh, it's very manly or something like that. But it wasn't even intentional. But I guess that's how it comes across. Because that's fine, I'll take it as a compliment. I never thought of it as that, though. Like I said, with me, it's very unconscious or something. It's very like instinctive. It's not really, strategic like that. But that's maybe how it comes across in our society. So.